This is the story of a lost city buried under the Arabian desert, a city described in the Quran in 1001 Nights and on ancient clay tablets from Syria, and the explorer, filmmaker, and NASA satellite that may have finally found it. In the fall of 1930, a British explorer named Bertram Thomas set out from Salalah on the coast of Oman with 25 Bedouin guides, attempting to become the first European to cross the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter. Covering 250,000 square miles across Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, and Yemen, the empty quarter is the largest sand desert in the world by volume, with dunes reaching 800 feet tall. Thomas knew what he was walking into. Born in Somerset in 1892, he had fought alongside local forces in Mesopotamia during World War I and risen to become a political advisor to the Sultan of Oman. His own government would have forbidden the attempt, so he kept it secret. For 59 days, no one heard from him. On February the 5th, 1931, Thomas emerged in Doha, Qatar, carrying over 400 natural history specimens, including 21 species new to Western science. He also carried something else entirely, a story. His Bedouin guides had told him of an ancient lost city buried somewhere to the north beneath the sand. One guide described it this way: a great city, rich in treasure, with date gardens and a fort of red silver, now buried beneath the sands some few days to the north. Thomas published the account in his book Arabia Felix. Among those who read it was T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, who wrote to friends that he was convinced the remains of an ancient Arab civilization existed in that desert. Lawrence planned his own search, but died in a motorcycle accident in 1935 before he could go. Before he died, he gave the city a name: Atlantis of the Sands. The story of this lost city doesn't begin with Thomas. It begins in the Quran, where the tribe of Ad, the people of a place called Iram, appear in a passage warning unbelievers, "Have you not considered how your Lord dealt with Ad, the tribe of Iram, who had lofty pillars, the likes of which were not produced in all the land? The Ad built monuments on every high place, raised palaces as if they would live forever, and conquered their neighbors with what the Quran describes as tyranny. God sent the prophet Hud to warn them. They refused to listen. What they believed was rain approaching their valley turned out to be a sandstorm. According to the Quran, a fierce wind destroyed them non-stop for 7 nights and 8 days. Their city was obliterated, buried as though it had never existed. The same city surfaces in 1001 Nights, specifically in the story of Abdullah bin Ali Kaliba, who stumbles upon a deserted city of gold and silver palaces while searching for a lost camel. When he describes it to local officials, an expert immediately identifies it. Iram with pillars, built by Shaddad, son of Ad the Greater, a king so powerful he commanded 100,000 chiefs, each commanding 100,000 warriors who built him a paradise on earth. Before Shaddad could enter it, a rushing sound from the heavens destroyed his entire host. The city has sat empty ever since. For centuries, scholars dismissed Iram as religious allegory. Then came the clay tablets of Ebla. In 1964, archaeologist Paolo Mathieu from the University of Rome began excavating a site called Mardich in northern Syria, 35 miles southwest of Aleppo. In 1968, his team found a statue inscription reading Ibit Lim, King of Ebla, the first modern identification of a city mentioned in Egyptian, Sumerian, and Akkadian texts. In 1974, while clearing debris from a palace, they found 42 clay tablets. What followed was one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Roughly 17,000 tablets and fragments stored on collapsed shelves, preserved by the very fire that had destroyed the palace. Among those tablets were trading records mentioning a city called Iram, described as legendary, called the City of Towers. The tablets even described Iram as a place of idolatry, consistent with both the Quran and 1001 Nights. Iram was no longer just a story. It had an ancient paper trail. The question shifted from whether Iram existed to where it was. An answer started forming in the early 1980s from an unlikely direction. Nicholas Clapp, a filmmaker and amateur archaeologist who had grown up reading Arabia Felix, made a phone call to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. His question was simple: if a city was buried in the desert, could radar see it? Somehow, he convinced NASA to scan the empty quarter during their 1984 shuttle radar flight, using a system capable of penetrating sand and detecting subsurface geological features. The images revealed something astonishing: an extensive network of ancient trade routes where centuries of camel traffic had compacted the earth beneath the sand. Many of those routes converged on a single point, the Shisr oasis. Clapp recruited American archaeologist Juris Zarins and British explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes. When the team began digging at Shisr, they found that a local fort, previously dismissed as a few centuries old, had been built on top of something much older. Beneath the rubble lay the remains of a settlement nearly 5,000 years old. At its center stood a huge fortress ringed by 8 walls, each 10 to 12 feet high and 60 feet long, with towers at each corner 10 feet in diameter and 30 feet tall. It appeared to be a royal residence, a storage and processing facility, and a trading record center. The city had been built over a limestone cavern, and eventually, its own weight caused that cavern to collapse into a sinkhole, destroying the city and burying it permanently. Fayens published his conclusion in a 1992 book titled, fittingly, Atlantis of the Sands. What nobody could recover were the parts swallowed by the sinkhole. Whatever else Iram contained, its records, its treasures, its full story, went down with it, and the mystery hasn't stopped growing. In 2008, a neurologist named Abdullah Al-Said used Google Earth to discover not one but hundreds of enormous stone structures spread across the Harat Khaibar lava fields in Saudi Arabia, structures he called gates. Archaeologist David Kennedy of the University of Western Australia spent a decade documenting them. By 2021, over 1,000 had been found across nearly 100,000 square miles, now called mustatils, the Arabic word for rectangle. Radiocarbon dating placed them at over 7,000 years old, older than Stonehenge. Nobody yet knows what they were for, how the people who built them communicated the designs across such distances, or how some were constructed on the sides of volcanoes. Similar giant stone circles have been found in the Golan Heights. Ancient funerary avenues stretching for thousands of miles across the Arabian Peninsula have turned up, lined with burial monuments, connecting oases and pastures. One archaeologist who works in the region put it plainly: these finds have the potential to profoundly change our understanding of the early history of the Middle East. Bertram Thomas never made it back to find the city. Lawrence of Arabia never got his chance. But between a NASA radar scanner, a filmmaker's hunch, and 17,000 clay tablets fired in an ancient palace fire, the Atlantis of the Sands turned out to be more real than anyone had imagined, and far more buried than anyone can yet reach.